Welcome back to Dear Dog Fanatic. I'm your host, Kirsten, but you can call me Kay. I am a virtual dog trainer and dog mom of three. And today we have a special guest, Marie, who's going to introduce herself and a foster dog, which is the first of their kind on this podcast. Take it away.
So I'm Marie Clark. I am the transformation career coach for those who are burned out in their current work and are looking for something that is both aligned with their values and will also fill their wallet. And as part of that, we are fostering a gorgeous little 14-year-old beagle mix named Angel.
So cute already. And so, because already I can feel the listeners, how do these align? I know how these align, but for those who maybe don't have as much of a background in terms of coaching and educating and that sort of thing, explain to the folks how this all works together.
So, as a coach, one of my big missions, hence the name of my company, Move to
Mm.
Joy, is to create joy in the world. And dogs, of course, bring joy to their owners. But then also by fostering, I'm bringing joy to not only the dog that I'm fostering, who's no longer in a shelter, but also creating space for another dog that might need that spot in the shelter.
Absolutely. And people, I don't think celebrate fosters enough because truly it is. There are some dogs, a lot of dogs that truly cannot thrive or show their true personalities within a shelter environment. And as much as that's amazing when we have the foster fails, honestly, the folks that are dedicated fosters time and time again, who open their homes and their hearts to give these dogs a safe place to land and then lovingly give them off to the next family, I just think what you do is incredible.
I was lucky enough to adopt a dog that had been fostered because she was not thriving in the shelter. So now they have a special place in my heart.
Oh, that's so sweet. Can you tell us about your current beagle mix? I think you said. Tell us a little bit
She is
more.
so I've had beagles in the past.
Mhm.
My first two dogs were beagles. She is the most unbeagle-like beagle I've ever met. Very not food motivated.
Yes, for those who maybe do or do not know, scent hounds and beagles in particular, we call them chow hounds, colloquially for a reason. So that's very interesting that Angel is not as food motivated.
She is not particularly food motivated, but she is very, very sweet. She is probably the sweetest dog. I've had 6 dogs in my house, over the years, and she's probably the sweetest of the dogs.
That's so cute. How so now I'm just nosy and curious. What? Because I can sense that there's a link here. You help your clients transform their lives. Can you speak to also how that works with the rescue dog experience? I know obviously each dog is different, but from the folks that I have talked to that have worked in rescue and who foster, you can just notice the change in the dog as they start to feel more comfortable. Their true personality comes out. I'm sure that's the same for your clients once they build those core skills that they need to. Because there's the first level, and I know this as a dog trainer. First is the baseline of getting to safety. And then once you're there, you can make good decisions for the future.
That is 100% how I would say my clients come to me. They are burned out in their careers to the point where it has impacted the rest of their life. And they are deep in that stress response that we see with dogs that are going through any sort of trauma
Yeah.
in a shelter, right? Or even as they change locations, right? Even if you adopt from a reputable breeder, you're still going to have a lot of stress as they adjust to a new location.
You can't, unfortunately, and we can see this with children and other humans, of course, but there's some level of there's a limit to what we can communicate to them. We can communicate to them in the moment, but the concept of past and future is not there, so we can't contextualize it for them.
Yeah. So at least when I'm working with my human clients, we can talk through what's causing them burnout. We can start to control those pieces so that they can make conscious choices, right? And then begin to have their true self come back. With the dogs, you don't have that. You've got to communicate to them in their language, which is not words.
No, it's not human. And I use human intentionally because I could say we're speaking English, obviously, but dogs don't speak French or German or Mandarin or anything else either. So the way that we humans communicate is not the same that our furry friends do at all. I'm just curious because I have been very fortunate to work with a lot of folks who work from home with their dogs. I imagine, given the nature of your work, you work from home while you have Angel, your current foster. Does that impact your work at all? So I had some preconceived notions when you said beagle, but now that I'm hearing that she's not a chow hound, perhaps I had biases that were incorrect.
Yes. So, and I saw that you had a episode about work from home with
Yeah.
your dog earlier, and it was not what I expected because even though I've worked from home through the whole pandemic, this was the first time a new dog had come in.
Didn't have the established routine or yeah.
Correct, correct. And what I learned is that as an entrepreneur, while my routine is the same, like every Monday looks pretty similar, every Tuesday looks pretty similar, Monday and Tuesday look very different. And so for a dog coming in, that was an extremely difficult adjustment. And I ended up having to make a whole bunch of adjustments, including learning how to work downstairs on a little tiny screen in a headset for privacy for my clients, even though it was just my dog,
Mm.
still wanted to have privacy, that I was there for her as she started to adjust.
And has that changed? How long has Angel been living with you?
So we got her Easter Sunday,
Oh, fun.
US. So it's been about 2 months now, so we're starting to get to that, a little bit calmer stage where she does know the routine now. But unfortunately for poor Angel, my husband is retired, except he also travels about half the time because he loves to travel. And the other 2 adults in the house, of which I am one, do not have a consistent schedule. So it's been an interesting learning curve for
As
the
she's
dog.
trying to learn the rhythm. It's like,
Yes.
"Oh, where did the human go?" Yeah, I can see that, and dogs can definitely learn for the listeners out there to adjust to that, but one thing that is consistent when you speak to many dog trainers and owners and rescue workers out there, when you've just moved or when a rescue dog is coming to their home, that decompression period and learning the routine is one of the common ways that we'll advise to create a sense of safety, which is obviously quite difficult when and which is not your fault, it's not Angel's fault, it just is what it is, right? But I imagine that could be a little bit unsettling, and she's not 14, I think you said, she's not a young gal anymore either.
She's not. She is one of those stories that just pulls on your heart for her and for her humans
Mm.
because her family ended up homeless.
Well, yeah.
And that just, when we decided we wanted to foster, we looked and we were like, oh my gosh, there's a 14-year-old dog in the shelter. We've got to make sure she doesn't spend her time in the shelter. And we're
Mhm.
so glad we did because she beautifully house trained, walks beautifully on a leash. We're pretty sure her family lived in an apartment. She doesn't bark. She's the quietest beagle mix I've ever met. So it's been a very rewarding experience.
Amazing. Is this one of those situations where I know sometimes when the humans are in tough spots, there are some shelters that will do emergency fosters, and then when the human gets back on their feet, I know this is more common with like transition house situations. Is it that kind of program, or is it more a foster until we find the right home, or a foster indefinitely due to the? It depends. It doesn't sound like she's in a hospice situation, but there's a few different ways these types of situations can go. You know.
Yes. So our shelter in the county that I live in does do some assistance for people that are in that sort of financial difficulty. Unfortunately, this family did have to surrender her permanently. So she is now with us until we find another home for her, or unfortunately, and our furry friends leave us all too early.
I know. I know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head because I almost want to say 15, but I'm gonna look this real quick, listeners, before I give you the wrong information. But I'm like, what is the life expectancy? Because I don't think they're the 20-year-old kind of breed. Yeah, like 10 to 15 years. So it's also it depends. Are they actively is she still in I know sometimes rescues do the let's have a decompression phase and then we'll start looking for a home. Is she still in that or is she in the we're actively looking for a family to adopt her kind of phase?
So we're actively looking for a family to adopt her, and she's an amazing dog. She is very active for a 14-year-old dog, and she still does zoomies in the backyard. So it's
Amazing.
always fun to watch.
This is a perfect plug. We'll get a little bit in about Angel and then we will circle back to how this impacts your work and what it is that you do. What do you think the perfect home for Angel is? Because obviously, over time, you now have experience working from home with Angel and multiple adults in the house and changing schedules. You have a bit of context about what her life was like before with the family. Do you have any sort of sense what would be the perfect home or a good fit for her?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things about fostering, right? If I know one of the reasons I adopted from a place that did fostering was because I had some needs that needed to be accommodated. So for Angel in particular, we know that she would do well in an apartment. She would do wonderful with somebody who was either working from home or who was retired because she just wants to go for a little walk in the morning, have a lovely snooze, maybe get outside at lunchtime, have a little snooze with her people,
Yeah.
and then have a little dinner walk and then have a snooze because, she's an active 14-year-old, but she is 14. So, but she's a beautifully well-mannered dog, does well with other dogs and loves all people that we've met.
She sounds incredible. And this is a really good time for me to throw in there the advice that a lot of people, when they say, "Oh, I'd like to get a dog," and maybe this is my first dog, or they have certain restrictions around how much time they can devote to a dog. In this case, obviously, Angel would need someone to be around all of the time. But this is, I think, the ideal situation of what people have in their minds as like, "Oh," and we go for a little walk and then they snooze. Then we go for a little walk and they snooze. And I can say, and because you've been a dog owner for quite a while as well. This isn't your first rodeo. That is not always the case with a lot of dogs, particularly when they're younger. So a lot of times when people come to me saying like, "Oh, I'd love to get a dog," I'm like, well, maybe we should actually look at the senior dogs, the adult dogs, dogs that have an established routine and mannerisms and habits and things like that, because it's a lot less work than a puppy or a young dog where you have to instill all that in them and they still have that energy to burn. So she sounds like she's a really great fit for somebody out there.
Well, I was going to say, it is so important to match your dog to your personality and to your lifestyle.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I've had different dogs over the years because my lifestyle has changed over time. And so I've had like multiple breeds of dogs because my needs have changed. So it's really
Okay.
important to make sure. Go ahead.
No, we're going to get into that because that is I I actually made a post the other day where I'm like, "I'm gonna say this in 30 years and you're going to be sick of me." That compatibility is the most important thing to consider when getting a dog. And similarly to you, I have 3 dogs now, different kinds of dogs, and I've plotted out for the rest of my life what kinds of dogs I think I will want to have depending on what stage of life I am planning on being on. So please take the stage. Tell people more about that. As much as you're willing to share, what kind of dogs have you had and why did you decide to do different dogs at different points in time?
So I started with beagles, which
Cool.
I kind of into. But I wanted a dog that was active. I was actively trying to lose weight. I was in the process of losing 100 pounds. And I needed a reason to make sure I got up off my couch. And I was in a situation where, although I was renting, I did have a fenced yard. Turns out, as much as I loved to hike, I never did get my beagles to the point where they didn't follow the scent around the tree in a big circle and twist their leash around. So we never quite got to the hiking, but we did really good with walking.
Nice.
Right. So they needed a lot of exercise. They were
Mhm.
fairly young beagles when I got them. And then I did have a beagle pass from cancer. My other beagle told me she was lonely and needed a dog.
Okay. Yes.
So I went out and the beagle that I had been astray. So I actually worked with a rescue on purpose because I knew that my beagle was dog selective, but she wanted a friend.
Mhm.
So we worked with
That
a rescue.
is so important. And no, and this is why, and I promise we will get back to the topic at hand, but this is why this is so important because I could sense this about you, knowing what it is that you need, knowing what it is that your dog needs. And so this is what I tell people too. If you already have a dog, you have to look at who's compatible for you, but also who's compatible with your other furry friend. Please continue.
Yes. So I ended up with she was a Heinz 57 dog.
Okay, cool.
She had a little bit of everything, depending on which body part you looked at. You
Hmm,
could pick a
hmm.
breed. It's great. And she and my dog selective beagle ignored each other. It was great. And then when my beagle died, my Heinz 57 dog told me that she was lonely and she wanted a dog. So I also worked with the same rescue that I'd gotten her from. We found a fantastic lab terrier mix and the two of them got along great. And then when they both passed, I was like, well, I'm in the middle of transitioning from a regular job, right, into entrepreneurship. We're going to move. This isn't the right time. So we ended up deciding to foster. And all the adults in the house kind of got together and said, okay, of the dogs that are available for foster, which ones would be the best match for us. And so we looked at those things as well.
And again, multiple humans, multiple stakeholders. So we take a look at everybody's needs. I love that. And what was the consensus? Like, what were you looking for in a dog?
So our shelter, which like a lot of shelters, has little teeny tiny dogs and really big dogs. And I'm a fan of the nice medium sized dog.
Makes sense with the
So,
beagle.
yeah, so we were willing to compromise on size. And my sister, who does happen to live with us, she likes 10-pound dogs.
Got more of the lap
An-
dog fans.
Angel's 25, so her dog's a little big for her, a little small for me. But we really looked at age. We wanted to pull a dog that was older because young puppies get adopted very, very quickly. Plus, they're way more work
Yes.
than I want to do, right? You
Yes.
mentioned that earlier in
Yes.
this in the show today. So we had those criteria. We kind of ranked our dogs, and we knew that we needed one that could handle my husband traveling because that is not, especially for a dog that's been in a stressful situation, to have an adult or any person in the house be there for a week or two, leave for 3 weeks, back for 3 weeks, leave for 3 weeks is kind of traumatic. It can be very disruptive.
It definitely throws off their rhythm or the sense of security. And for some dogs, not a problem. But for a dog that needs that stability routine as a baseline, I absolutely hear you.
Yeah. And then the other thing we looked at was of the three adults in the house, how we were going to make sure that somebody was available to take care of the dog
Mm.
because we have three very different schedules. And so for us, that was also a consideration to make sure that we were able to not only meet our needs, but really meet the needs of the dog.
And so it sounds like Angel is a wonderful foster for you guys, but probably not the perfect fit long term, is what I'm sensing. It's not a you, it's not Angel, it's just a fit thing.
Correct. Correct. She does love to have her people near her. She does much better if somebody's preferably on the sofa next to her doing
Mhm.
their work. But she's okay if you're kind of in the next room. She'll come get you when she needs you. But our family would do better with a dog that's got a little bit more independence. And so when we do go to get a dog for our family and finally fully adopt one, we will find one that kind of meets that need as well.
Oh, I love that. And it speaks so much to a friend of mine is heavily involved in their local foster in Ireland. That's where my husband is from. And she has been saying, "Oh, I'd like to get a second dog, but like not yet. But we always foster." So I say, "Okay, we'll write a list of what you don't want in a dog but can live with, and then we'll foster that, and then you can start fostering what it is you want when you feel like, oh, if I meet the right dog." Same thing is like when I meet the right person, But when you're not in the right phase of life, you don't want to go there. So that makes sense to me. Awesome. And we're going to get back into business and talk more about what it is that you do with the transformation that you offer to people. And obviously, those that have a soft heart that are in the rescue dog role will probably really connect with your personality type as a coach. So, can you explain a little bit more about what it is that people come to you for?
Yeah, so I work with people that are at that burnout, that stress point, to the point where it's impacting their whole life,
Mm.
not just their work. And we try to find something, we almost always succeed in finding something that aligns with their values, their lifestyle, the impact they want to make on the world, and kind of like finding the right dog match,
Mm.
right? We work to find a career that meets their criteria and allows them to really thrive and become the full, joyful human that they are meant to be.
This is amazing. And I know it's been a little while now, but when I was in university, I am in the zillennial kind of category. And one thing that we had growing up was that was different from some of the older generations is we will not stay in the same job for our whole career. We won't even stay in the same industry a lot of the time. So I imagine there's more people than ever kind of needing services like yours. Do you tend to work with folks that are like midlife making transitions? Who is it that would really benefit from working with you? Obviously, I can think of a lot of people, but who's your like primary target audience?
So, my core clientele are women in leadership positions, mainly in tech and finance, and they're in that 35 to 55 age range. And part of the reason for that is the couple clients I have that are in their late 20s are still not even 100% sure sometimes who they are. And
Yes,
they're still in
yes.
that experimental phase, which is a fantastic place to be. And I certainly work with that group, but it's the group that is really struggling. So I have a background in project management as well. And it's those big projects that always excited me. And so by the time you hit 40, 45, you've got 20 plus years in a career. You probably have a mortgage, car payment, you've got kids, you've got a lot of responsibilities.
The stakes are higher. You can't afford to make a mistake and make the wrong is a strong word, but, like, you wanna try and get it right on the first try because there's a lot riding on that decision being both, like, financially stable and actually fulfilling because there's only so many years in the career force that they have left, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Some of it is how much they have left, and some of it is they are really stuck.
Mm.
They're in a high paying career, and the idea of starting over or sometimes even trying to figure out where they would even start over really kind of almost invalidates all that work they've done, as well as
Ah,
feels
it's the sunk
valuable.
cost fallacy a little bit
That's
there.
correct. Yeah. So we work with them and we really help them find something that can still pay their bills, right? And yet makes the paycheck of life so much richer because they are able to focus on their health and wellness and they're able to invest in their relationships in a way they couldn't when they were stuck in that burnout and stress.
Well, this makes sense. And again, like you said all throughout this episode, so relatable to the dogs where you need to know who you are first before you're able to make that decision and before they're ready to work with someone like yourself. For the folks listening where this resonated, where can they find you? Where can they go to find out more?
So they can always go to my website, which is movetojoycoaching.com. And that's to not the number. And from there, they can get a free resource about how to move to joy in 15 minutes or less a day. And then they can also take my burnout or bored quiz to see kind of where they fall on that spectrum.
Ooh. We don't have time to get into today, but as someone with ADHD, I'm like, oh, there's a whole other topic in that. So I'm sure many
So
folks will be interested in checking that out.
And it's only 5 questions, so even those with ADHD can make it through. And then I'm also very active on LinkedIn, and they can find me under Marie M. Clark there.
Fabulous. And don't worry, folks, as always, all of those links will be in the show notes. Thank you again so much for coming on today.
Yeah, it's been great talking with you, and I love how you are helping people find the right match with their dogs to create both happy people and happy canines.
Okay, I should have you write my slogans for me. Thank you, listeners, as always, for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Dear Dog Fanatic.